Mein Name ist Chayela Rosenthal. Ich lade heim zu freuen sich mit dem, was wir haben, und zu dermonen sich das, was es ist gewesen. Und wer kann besser dermonen, was es ist gewesen, wie die altitschke jüdische Mame, welche sagt: Alle was geworden, ist geworden, ist nicht tot. Aber ich weiß nicht, außerdem ist mir das so. Jeder sagt, du verstehst nicht. Was verstehen? Schabes in der Früh, in die Schule reime geht. Die Vogel, die Seidel, die Tatel, die Mammel, mit Kingalach, mit Mädel, in Schabes dicken Kleiderl, am Chaie sei zu sehr.
I don't remember growing older. Wasn't it yesterday when they were small?
Ich bin eine Actress. Ich bin gekommen, spielen Theater. Was? Ich lieb Theater, und ich zieh an im Theater, mein Schöner Trieb. Ich will lachen, ich will quälen, weil ich will doch euch gefällt.
Welcome and thank you. Thank you for being here. What an extraordinary journey this has been for me leading up to this moment. As a young child, I knew that my parents were different. They were older than my friends' parents. They had thick foreign accents and spoke Yiddish to each other most of the time. And my mother was definitely different to other moms I knew. She kept her maiden name. She was in show business. She could sing and speak in 7 languages. She wrote her own comedy scripts for her cabaret acts and charity events, and she often traveled overseas to perform all over the world, sometimes for months at a time. I knew my parents were different, but I also knew they were special because they were Holocaust survivors. Though I did not understand the full significance and implications of that until I was much older. Our home was always filled with theatre people of all races, genders. We had bridge partners, artists, much laughter and music always in the house. But there were also silences that deep sadness brings. The shadow of the Holocaust was ever present in our home, especially in those moments when my mother would sit quietly by her dressing table, staring at the tiny black and white photograph of a handsome young man looking up at her, the one that we could not ask her about. It was of Leib, her beloved brother. She did not speak to me or my sister about him, nor about the war or her ghetto and camp experiences, and nor about any of the family that was killed. Better you shouldn't know, she would say when my older sister Nava dared to ask. Better don't talk. It was too painful. And as a child of survivors, I somehow sensed that. And I decided that I would do what I could to never cause either of my parents any more pain. So I was a good girl. Though I do know that unintentionally I did sometimes cause my mother pain when I practiced the piano. Because I would be in the lounge and I would hear a voice from the bedroom, wrong note. She was a perfectionist of note, and so was my father. My father always said, always be and do your best. This is the man who changed his name to Xavier Piatka, because when pronounced in Polish, Piątka means 5, the highest score that those children, when he was a child, could get at school. He wanted to be the best. And my father was a journalist who loved to write and speak and share about everything. And so, while my mother stayed silent, he did speak openly to us about his family and his war years experiences. And he regularly wrote newspaper articles about the Holocaust. And from a young age, my sister and I were exposed to Holocaust films and documentaries, and to many other survivors who gathered in our home, who shared their stories. But it was only when we were much older, after my mother had passed, that my father shared what had happened to her and her family during those horrific years. It was then, and still is so hard for me to imagine, because the Chayela that I grew up with was a delightful, bubbly Yiddish mama, fun and playful and childlike. And thinking about my mother always brings a smile to my face, as she did for all those lucky enough to have known her. She was warm and loving, brave, intelligent, feisty, fighting for people's rights if they were wronged, talented and very funny. Everybody adored her, and I was so happy that she was my mother. Although I did used to cringe sometimes when she would kiss my friends, like Shmochka the cheeks, every time she saw them. She was not a great cook. She was not a good driver. And my sister and I would roll our eyes with her little superstitions, spitting 3 times to ward off evil spirits all the time. She never gave up fighting evil. Or she would declare, do not walk under an open ladder, and do not wear green clothes, and do not step over someone younger than you, because you won't grow. Which is probably why she was short and probably why I'm short. But that 5 feet short Yiddish mama sure had a larger-than-life spirit that even as a teenager, despite her terrible situation, she was uplifting, enriching, and oftentimes saving many lives in the ghetto and camps. Resiliently and defiantly fighting against evil, she gave her fellow inmates hope and courage and even some joy in those years of despair, loss, and uncertainty. So it was during lockdown that I began to learn more and more about my parents, their heritage, and my legacy. Because I decided to go through my cupboards and do a cleanup of all the stuff and papers. Down came the big boxes labeled Chayela and Xavier. My father kept every single photo, document, card, newspaper article, everything, show program, reviews, everything going back to 1945. And these boxes traveled around the world, and then some, from our childhood home in Fresno to my sister's home in America after he died, and then back to my Sea Point apartment after she died. And while we had already donated what we assumed were important photos and documents to the Holocaust Museum in Washington and to YIVO, the Yiddish and Jewish Archiving Institute in New York, I still felt there might be some more treasures in these little boxes, so I better go through them. And when I did, I discovered so many documents and photos I'd never seen before. I didn't pay attention. My sister was the torchbearer. And then I found content that was not in her book, No Goodbyes, and nor in her play. And then I realized that this all needed to be saved, preserved, archived, and shared, not only with my nieces and nephews or extended family, but also with the world, because there was important history there. And that was the start of my new mission, making my parents' life story, all those photos and contents of those boxes, accessible to all. And so I created Chayela.com and a YouTube channel to host all the recordings that we have of my mother's songs and concerts. And as I began to Google on the internet to check historic facts, I discovered even more and more about my mother and her brother that I didn't know, and more of their songs that I'd never heard, and articles I'd never seen, and met strangers online who started sending me things. And I only recently found the only photo that exists of my mother and her brother and sister that was taken before the war. It's up on one of the panels. And while Chayela's little website was growing with daily uploads, which then needed a page for Labe and then a page for my father, it's still growing, I still often stopped and wondered, who besides my family is actually going to look at this website? Why am I even doing this? And then 9 months ago, Myra Osran called me, asked me for coffee, and shared her very special idea about creating this exhibition thereafter. Humbled and honored, I then also add my aha moment, realizing that the website had value and greater purpose. Inviting me on board to meet and work with this exhibition's exceptional curating team has been so rewarding and a true privilege. And oh, the team kept me very, very busy. In December, even while I was on vacation, I visited my family in America and I went digging in more Piatka and Rosenthal boxes I'd left behind in my niece's home, finding even more precious memorabilia that I schlepped back in my hand luggage. Music manuscripts, joke books, more photos. And her sequined concert dress, yes, Royalik the puppet my sister had created for her play, and the blue book where my mother had written down all her brother's songs that were written in the ghetto, and her fluffy little toy lion, Leo, named after Labe, her mascot that accompanied her to every show she did. And here they are all today, in their place of honor, in their own showcase, lit up as bright as my mother's smile. And speaking of shows and the legacy I've inherited, I must admit that choosing and learning new songs, especially Yiddish ones, for celebrating Chayela in song was quite a challenge, but also a heartwarming opportunity, because to date, I've only ever sung 3 Chayela and Labe songs. I'm working on it. My parents sadly did not encourage us to speak Yiddish, but they did shower me and my sister with unconditional love, support and encouragement in all we did, guiding us with their wisdom, their life lessons, courage, their humor, their intelligence, their artistic talents, and their optimism, instilling in us a strong sense of fairness, respect, and compassion for all. And so, of course, it is my great privilege to proudly honor their memory, their lives, and their work. As a 2G, second-generation child of survivors, I feel now ever more deeply my obligation and responsibility to keep sharing with the world their story and the stories of their families and of the 6 million killed in the Holocaust, because all their stories are part of all of our shared history and heritage. 20 years ago, on the 60th anniversary, my sister brought my mother to life on the same stage in Vilna that my mother had performed on. And now here we are, 80 years after the liquidation of the ghetto, at this exhibition, where I have had the opportunity to bring Chayela back to life again. 2 daughters had their mother-daughter journey fulfilled. Thank you. And to all who made this exhibition possible, to Myra Osran and the incredible team at the Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Center, to all those behind the scenes, I will list your names at the end of my speech. Thank you to the generous donors who've helped fund this exhibition, and to Tully Nates and to Mary Klook for hosting the exhibition in Johannesburg and now here in Durban. Thank you for your enthusiasm, your creativity and your sensitivity, and your attention to absolutely every detail you could imagine that goes into making this exhibition so accessible, unique, meaningful, and inspiring. It usually takes more than 2 years to get an exhibition like this together. But Cape Town is the mother city, and our team brought this exhibition to life in just 9 months. How fitting that we opened the Cape Town exhibition on the 18th of June last year. For 18 means life. And here we are all celebrating Chayela's life. A life she chose to celebrate each day. A powerful reminder that no matter how brutal life can be, the human spirit can still triumph. And so I echo my uncle's encouraging words, hold on, life will win. That was his message to all in the ghetto. And then he would say and sing, Wir leben ewig, wir seien da. We will live forever. We are still here. You are here. And I am here because Chayela came out of the worst darkness to live her best life in the light.